should be very careful not to make any gaffe. So let's say I'll do it simply for the purposes of this meeting. Mr. Blair is not going to be involved. So that's a relic of the diplomacy which was necessary in the good old times for me. So, I mean, if we include, for instance, a thing which is different from the Western European tradition, is the informality and the way in which the Americans do start an arbitration and do use the, I'd say, total informality. We are much more meticulous, even in England, in the UK, excuse me. We prepare a rather careful act of summons or request for arbitration. We start out proceedings trying to follow, which is not always wise, the pattern of a judicial proceeding, though simplified. In America, in many a situation, the request for arbitration is 3 lines. There is no motivation. There is no specific request, because everything comes out in the pre-trial procedure. The pre-trial procedure, again, is something here. Now, here, the UK is on the American side because of the UK, but I don't think your pre-trial is as exhaustive as the American pre-trial procedure. And the pre-trial means building the case without the judge or without the arbitrators. In other words, there is a strong contradiction between the parties. Documents are exchanged, cross-examination is carried out. At the end of the pre-trial, you hand to the arbitrator or to the judge a lovely file. There is also, which is probably the most important person, a stenographer. Those marvelous court stenographers who help so much in carrying out arbitration. That is a remarkable difference, because there again one should try to reach a modicum of understanding. Third and last point, I called it I had 2 articles from which I'm drawing. The other one is called the 12th Table of Arbitration, an agreement on fundamental principles strengthening its international diffusion. Among the 12th table, there is also what I call the demeanor during the trial. I would say there the American style, once again, is peculiar. It is a very aggressive style. It is an aggressive style vis-à-vis the arbitrator. And of course, the wise arbitrator retires. If he is polite enough, he says good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and says nothing. Whereas a civil law arbitrator, a middle-of-the-road position, a UK arbitrator would sort of adopt a middle-of-the-road position. But one thing, the submissions, probably taking advantage of a marvelous organization of big law firms. I married 2 years ago with a big law firm, so I should be careful not to speak in a disparaging way about my own partners. But the perfect organization of the law firms brings about thousands and thousands of documents which are handed to the poor arbitrator. And usually the arbitrator is much less organized than the attorney. And I call this technique flooding the arbitrator with documents. In many situations, I had 300, no more than that, 460 kilos of submissions recently, and were technical submissions. I appointed an expert. He said 2/3 have nothing to do with the case. 1/2 of the remaining third is meaningless. The other half of the remaining third is useful. So that's a technique. Especially when you are dealing with developing countries, this may become unfair because they don't have the same organization. Again, it's a matter of intelligence. Ladies and gentlemen, I only scraped the first surface of the geological stratus. There are so many more things which I would like to say. Forgive me if I acted par affirmation, but I think I pointed out some of the crucial points which every arbitrator has to face. May I give you the last suggestion? I know that it is not always liked in the Anglo-American world. Now I'm saying Anglo-American world because it includes both the UK and America. That is so-called terms of reference. This is an ICC, International Chamber of Commerce technique, which, with all due respect, they did not invent anything because it was simply the litis contestatio of the Roman process. It was known in this country a few years ago. Litis contestatio, or the terms of reference, is a document on which you can set the rules of the game. You can speak about discovery, you can speak about the pre-trial process, you can speak about the powers of the arbitrators, you can say whether or not an arbitrator can appoint an expert sponte sua without having a request by the parties. In other words, one can overcome the differences by using reason, cultural openness, and, if you allow me, which should always be the prerequisite, a bit of knowledge, and do your own homework. And remember that comparative law is the key to the understanding of other people's way to behave, and never try to impose your own way over the way of the others. Thank you very much.